Hello everybody, welcome back to my Pokemon Sleep News series. As you can see, I've got the tie on. As you can hear, I've got the Top Hollow daytime music theme going on, which I normally don't do for most of my videos, but I do for the most exciting of stuff, which is the news. So, let's get right into it. A lot of interesting stuff just got found out by the community, by the data miners. There wasn't an official announcement about this, but because it was done through maintenance, data miners were able to pull a lot of new info about the next update coming up, and my gosh, this is quite the outstanding update. Quite the interesting update. Things are going to change, I think. But let's get right into it. So the big new thing, 6 new meals, and a new ingredient, actually. So, rousing coffee. New ingredient, it's probably going to be on just the 3 new lines that have been introduced. The Vikavolt, Aggron, and, I'm forgetting the last one. Vikavolt, Aggron, and Luxray. Those 3. So, it's getting added. It's got 153 base strength, which is one of the top ones in the game. Previously, that puts it just above Cacao. I believe that puts it at number 6, if I am correct in saying that. I don't have my normal infographic I normally have up. Let me pull it up here. So yeah, as you can see, it puts it at number 4. The 4th highest ingredient in the game, at 153. Just a decent amount below mushrooms, but a little bit above cocoa, but it's probably going to be comparable in cocoa how powerful it is. But its real strength is the 5 new meals that they've put it in. All of these meals I think are going to be somewhat meta significant. We might not see some of them a bit less than others, but something very interesting. 5 new meals. Wait, what? Didn't the update say 6 new meals? Well, there is a 6th new meal in the cross-chopped salad. Now, I think they put this in for a very particular reason, and I think it is a counter-meta pick, honestly. It's a little bit lower on the tier value. It's about 56 ingredients, which is a bit lower than what the new meta is probably going to be, because if you look here, the Defiant Coffee Dressed Salad takes 100 ingredients and has a 61% bonus. Now, you'll see that a lot of the new meals, at least the top ones of each type, have a 61% bonus. That is huge. Even with weaker ingredients, that is boosting the value of your ingredients just so much more from their base value. So, huge for people running ingredient-focused strategies. But, what's really going to change with the meta of this? Well, in this video, I really want to discuss some of the winners and losers of this update, of these changes. At least what I think is going to be winners and losers. Now, this all could change, theoretically, because they're adding 3 new ingredient specialist lines. The data miners have found that the 3 new lines are all ingredient specialists, which is just very interesting. That's not what they did with Lapis. They added a skill specialist line and 2 new ingredient specialists. But at this one, it's all new ingredient specialists. So we're not seeing any new berry specialists with Aggron like I had thought and kind of hoped for. But it's all ingredients. Huge for ingredients. And with the pot size going up to 69, as has been confirmed as well by the data miners, and some of these new meals taking as much as 100 ingredients, I think that this is going to shift the meta a bit more away from... I think that before a balanced approach was kind of the strongest in the game. If you had like a couple Pokemon to cover your ingredients and then running berry specialists alongside that, then that would be the best way. But I think we're going to see a shift away from people using berry specialists just for their berries and kind of more thinking about how to use their ingredients intelligently, because at this point, with this 61% bonus, if you're not taking advantage of that, you're really losing out on a lot of value in those Pokemon. So I really think that this is kind of the devs kind of trying to shift us into a more long-term goal of making sure that the meal is our primary source of strength, and then berries are like a side thing, where berry specialists aren't going to ever be weak. I think they'll always have a role in the meta, because if you can cover the meal in less Pokemon, then running berry specialists in the extra slots is always going to be better, because like they just make more berries. So I think we're going to see a little bit more of a shift away from sneaky snacking in general. But yeah, now there's 6 new meals. As you can see, I have a few more of them up here than just the 6 new meals. That's just because I just tried to limit what's showing to just the 6 new meals, but some of them still got through because the filters in this calculator can't perfectly filter to just the 6 new meals. At least if they do, I don't know how to do it. But Yeah, so we have the early bird coffee jelly. Well, each dish type only had 2 new meals introduced. It was spread across all 3 equally, and each one was given a 35% boost one, so like a mid option, and then a new top tier meal with a 61% boost. Like, that is still just wild to me that they gave more of a percent boost. I guess it makes sense. It's the natural progression of things, but man, it's just getting crazy. So, yeah, we got the early bird coffee jelly as the mid option. And all of these I think can be meta relevant. They all exist above what I consider to be the line of what's reasonable for consideration. I usually say there's like a line that you can, an invisible line that you can kind of draw right here, that like this 3,000 value is kind of the minimum for what a meal is worth considering. So seeing that this one is at 6,000, it's well beyond that point. So, like, all these are going to be significant if you can make them with the right team. But early bird coffee jelly, cross chopped salad, and the drain punch spicy curry are our 3 new mid-tier meal options for each one respectively. And our new top tier meals all take coffee, as we kind of expected, with the Zing Zap spiced cola, the Defiant coffee dressed salad, and the Hidden Power Perk Up Stew. Now, something very interesting, I'm going to start discussing the winners and the losers. So, first winner that I want to really discuss is going to be those that benefit from the Defiant coffee dressed salad. I think this is a very interesting salad. Very, very interesting. And the first one is Toxicroak. Now, if you watch my daily journal series, you'll know that I recently found a Toxicroak with the AAB list. Previously, this guy was only good for mono oil, because if you look at this infographic, the only thing there was for sausage and oil for synergy was the Drought Katsu Curry, which is a crappy meal. It is really low on the tier list in terms of meal value, so this wasn't really a consideration. Other than that, there was nothing else that had sausage and oil. There was 0 synergy. Well, now, one of the top tier meals, the top tier salad, takes oil and sausage, and pretty close to what this guy can achieve with the AAC or AAB list. It's not the exact right ratio, but you're going to be getting pretty close if you have really good ingredient finding stats on this guy, and you have that AAB list, and it's producing that amount. So, being able to cover half of this meal, or not that meal, sorry, half of the Defiant coffee dressed salad with just the Toxicroak is pretty interesting. But another good one for this, if he's not producing quite enough oil and like overproducing the sausage or something, which is probably gonna be the other way. Let's say you have an ABA1. Actually, no, that wouldn't work either. Let's say it's ABB, and it's not producing enough oil, but too much sausage. Cramorant. Cramorant is one that also previously really just kind of wanted to be the mono oil build. It didn't really look much at its other options, because if we look at the old infographic, oil and potatoes, yeah, there was a little bit of synergy here with the green grass salad, but you'd be getting way too many potatoes for what it was worth, because it needed just way more oil than potatoes. And also, this green grass salad is better covered by Dragonite with the oil and corn, and then a Victory Bell or Mime covering the potatoes and tomatoes. So, like, this wasn't really an option for the Cramorant, because it was just, there were too many problems with it. And if you look throughout the rest of this, oil and potatoes don't really have that much synergy elsewhere either. Given that, Cramorant really only was another mono oil option. There really wasn't much else you could do with its ingredient list. There also wasn't even that much good for eggs with oil as well, as you can see down here and up here. There was a little bit with eggs and potatoes here, but once again, when you're trying to synergize the B and the C ingredient alone and just forgetting about the A, you usually come out not making quite enough. And also, the eggs would be the C ingredient, you'd be making way too many eggs, and this meal isn't even that great in the large scheme of things. So, and same with the egg bomb curry. Now, this is more in the right ratio, but you don't really need a Pokemon to cover an 8 and a 4. So, overall, the Cramorant was kind of ignoring its other ingredients and just looking for the mono. So, seeing this new meal have both oil, sausage, and potatoes, I think gives new life to possibly having the potatoes on the Cramorant, or having the sausage on the Toxicroak, because maybe you could run an ABB Toxicroak, get enough sausage, and an ABB Cramorant, get enough potatoes, and maybe just because both of them have the A ingredient. Normally you'd kind of forget about the A ingredient when you're, like, you really only look at the 30 and 60 ingredients, but if you have good stats on them, they'll be using a decent amount of them, the oil, and having it on 2 of your Pokemon, you'll actually be getting, like, a significant amount. So I think that's a very interesting combo. And something else to be said, they can be aided by Feraligatr, who also produces the oil and sausage to produce enough, who's a berry specialist. So I don't really consider running a Feraligatr to aid these guys as a downside, if you have to. So I think that's just really neat. Now, we don't know what the coffee specialists are going to look like quite yet. There could be more synergy here than even what I'm imagining at this point, because we just don't have all the data. But I think it's interesting. And who knows, maybe what the other one's going to have for that. Now, obviously it takes the most coffee, but we don't know what the coffee specialists produce yet. So we'll see when they come out which one's the best for that. My current theory is that Luxray is going to be the best mono coffee one, but we're going to be close in production level by running Aggron. I don't think it's going to outcompete the Luxray, but I think but that's all getting to speculation. I want to deal with the facts right now. So those, I think, are 3 huge winners of this update. Next big winners, I think, are 2 of the 3 Gen 9 starters. I didn't really think that Meowscarada has much to win from this, because it has potatoes and milk as its primary combination. I don't even know what its C ingredient is. But as you can see, the only new one that includes milk is the coffee jelly, which I'll be getting around to that, which doesn't synergize with the potatoes. But the other 2, these 2 just had... They were already pretty good, but they just had a huge glow up, especially the Skeledirge. Skeledirge before was kind of in this weird spot where he's too good. He was too good at what he did. The mono, you really didn't want sausage on him, and you still don't really want sausage on him because they didn't introduce anything to synergize apples and sausage. Likewise for the herbs as well. There really isn't anything new to synergize the herbs and sausage, or herbs and apples. However, the mono apple, which is what we were already looking for on the Skeledirge, just got a huge glow up, because before it was just stupidly excessive. He would just output way more apples than you could ever use. If I run mine through a quick, and mine's not even that good, remember, if I run mine through a quick production comparison, you can see that the one that I have, when I get him to level 60, and mine doesn't even have the AAA list, it has ABA. And yeah, it's got really good ingredient finding skills, that's true, but it doesn't even have the right list. Produces 129 apples a day. That was completely unnecessary before, because you only needed 75 at maximum, because the biggest meal that took apples had 25 apples in it. So now we have the Zingzap Spiced Cola, which takes 35 apples a day, or 35 apples a meal. If you do the math on that, that's 105 apples per day. 105 apples. Now, granted, my mid one still outproduces that. But, like, this is mid in terms of it has ABA, but it's got really good ingredient finding sub-skills. Now there's actually a reason to hunt for a really strong apple producer. On top of that, this same meal takes 20 leeks. Which, as we know, Quaquaval, with the double leek, is the best leek producer in the game. So leeks just got a minor buff. Because before you didn't need 20 leeks for anything. The biggest dish that took leeks was the Ninja Salad with 15, which this is significantly more than that. So a good Doug trio could easily cover it. But now it's going to be difficult to get to that point. Like if I put in just my Quaquaval, my best Quaquaval, and get him to level 60, you can see that he doesn't produce quite that 60. Now if I sub-skill seed him, he would, but that's not the point. it's difficult for a Quackball to get to that point, even with the double league list. So I think there's more significance in the double league list than there was before. I heard a lot of people talking about the AAB Quackball before, just because it has a stronger average value across the board. But I think hitting that 20 leaks per meal mark is really its true role in this. So getting a good Quackball with a double leak, I think, is going to be much more big than it was before. And then for Ginger, now, I think, interestingly enough, one of the biggest winners out of the Zing Zap Spice Cola isn't even an ingredient specialist, but is the Raichu. I love to talk about the Raichu. I've got great Raichus, but its ingredient list, mwah, just so synergistic with the desserts. It's already been good for Tea Time Corn Scones. It's already been great for Neroli's Restorative Tea. But now, they're putting apples and ginger in the Zing Zap Spice Cola. And anytime there's a meal that takes apples and ginger, Raichu gets a buff. Which, Raichu is already one of the biggest winners out of this buff because it was already one of the strongest berry specialists in the game. But the only thing that was holding it back was that it didn't have an island. They were already giving it an island. This dude was already going to become way more meta-significant than he ever was in the past. But now they also made one of the top tier meals take his ingredients with that island update. And the thing is, he's not even bad at making it. A lot of people discount the Raichu, I feel, in terms of its ingredient production because it is a berry specialist. That's not really what you're looking for. But if you know what to do with these apples and ginger is just so synergistic over dessert weeks, and it can actually output decent amounts. Let's see, if I just make a decent berry finding one that has berry finding and help speed M, if it's got the mono ginger list, it's producing like 40 ginger a day. Granted, it's a berry specialist, but like, this isn't even an amazing Raichu. If I give it like a help speed up nature and say energy recovery down, then boom, it goes up to 43. Like, and then run that alongside stronger energy recovery Pokemon, run that alongside help bonus Pokemon, it gets that number up a bit more. It's never gonna make quite enough for the 60 per day that's necessary to make this meal, but it's gonna get pretty dang close. And if you can just like supplement that with just a little bit of extra ginger from somebody else, let's say you run 2 Raichus with ginger, or you stockpile ginger for an event week, then you don't need to stockpile as much ginger because you have a Raichu on your team producing ginger consistently, and it's also producing a little bit of those apples as well. So you can run the Raichu alongside a Skeledirge, which also another minor buff for Skeledirge. It's a ghost type, which is huge because the old gold power plant has ghost berries, so it doesn't benefit from that as much because it doesn't produce that many berries. It's primarily a strong ingredient specialist that produces ingredients off of a high ingredient rate, which means those berries are being eaten up. But it's still a nice little buff to have favored berry there. So I think the Zing Zap Spice Cola just gave a huge boost to the Gen 9 starters and to Raichu as well. Now, I want to talk a little bit about this interesting cross-chop salad that doesn't take any coffee, most notably, because I think this was primarily an introduction to fight the mono meta to an extent. Maybe it wasn't intentional by the devs, but I think that it's going to combat the mono meta, because before, Beware was primarily only ever seen as the mono corn option. Now, you could put something else on your Beware if you say had a really good corn Dragonite, but it wasn't really that you were looking for something else on your Beware. It was more that you happened to find a Dragonite before that, and then you just kind of gave up on the Beware, because the only thing the Beware was really offering was mono corn. But now you can see that this new meal, the cross-chop salad, takes eggs, it takes sausage, and takes corn. And you'll notice the one that takes the least of is corn, followed by sausage, followed by eggs. Which is exactly the Beware's progression from A, B, to C, which, as you know, they produce the C ingredient the most, followed by the B, followed by the A. This dish was made for Beware, in my humble opinion. Now, I don't think a really, really strong Beware ever could output like 33 a day, 45 a day, and 60 a day. Like, you'd have to have a really, really, really powerful Beware. in order to do that. Like, the perfect just stat roll ever. But I think it's interesting that now this meal can be made 3 of its 4 ingredients theoretically by one Pokemon, which if you wanted to, you could run an ABC Beware and just stockpile enough ingredients so that you have it prepped for the next week. That you have it ready to go. So, like, that's huge for Beware with ABC lists, which before was considered completely unviable because you would never get even close to the amount of corn that you wanted. And then just run something with tomatoes, you're basically covering your meal with 2 Pokemon, which I always talk about as a really powerful combination if you can do that, because then you can run 2 berry specialists in those last 2 team slots. So I think Beware saw a huge boost. Additionally, let's say you just get a sausage corn Beware. Then a Abomasnow. Tomato eggs. This guy produces tomatoes and eggs, is what he's most known for. So this salad, I think, has made Abomasnow better, and it has made Beware more versatile. I don't think it's made Beware stronger, but it's made him more versatile from what he used to do. Now, I also want to talk a little bit about the losers of this update, unfortunately, because there are some Pokemon that didn't quite get the glow up we were hoping to see. And the biggest one that I want to say is the Blastoise. Now, we were kind of thinking there'd be a lot of things that would take cacao. Kind of thinking there'd be a lot of things that would take milk with this update, just because, you know, coffee, lattes, there'd be milk in cocoa, right? But the only thing that took... There's no new meals took cacao, so nothing there for him. And there's only one new meal that took the milk, which is this early bird coffee jelly, which... The biggest problem with the mono milk build on the Blastoise is that it's just excessive. There's no meals in the game that took more than 12 milk before this point. Now, granted, they've increased that to 14 with this, but 14 still really isn't that much. If I run a quick little run on my Espeon, which is a, like, decent milk producer, or I'll run my Flareon instead, because I'm probably going to find it quicker. Yeah, there's my Flareon. This Flareon, which is a skill specialist most notably, not an ingredient specialist, it just happens to have the mono milk build. It produces 37 a day of milk. That's enough that if you just ate it with, like, that's 5 away from the target. Actually, almost 4 away from the target of 42 with the 14. So, like, realistically, there's still, even after this update, is no real purpose for a true mono milk build. And I think that also goes against the Meowscarada, since there was no synergy introduced between milk and potatoes. The Meowscarada doesn't really win from this either, because there's no reason for that much milk. So, Blastoise, unfortunately, did not get the glow up we were all kind of hoping to see. I was honestly really hoping for something with the mono milk. I was hoping milk would become a more meta-relevant ingredient, but they really did it dirty with this update. It would have made so much more sense to make the milk more useful, but unfortunately, I think the milk meta is going to stay exactly the same of, like, try to produce it with your other Pokemon, because just having a milk specialist is super excessive. And it is going to remain that way unless they one day add a meal that makes milk meta relevant. The other one that I kind of want to talk about a little bit less is the Venusaur. We also kind of thought honey might see something with coffee, but I don't know. Like I said, there's honey with the early bird coffee jelly, but it's still kind of meh. And nothing else really used the honey, aside from the Dizzy Punch Spicy Curry, but there's really no synergy here, so you'd have to be running like a mono with the herbs. Now, if there is one that has coffee and herbs of the 3 new Pokemon, then the Venusaur is seeing something awesome. Now, it also has the tomato-potato combo, but that's not quite as significant as some other things. But overall, like, tomatoes also saw a bit of a glow up, mushrooms saw a bit of a glow up, and soybeans were already at the top of the meta. Now they're even stronger, and that's another thing to go for the Quaquaval, actually. If you have one with a mono soybean list, then he just saw much gains to 28. Before, the highest one was 24, going up to 28. it's more significant to have a mono soybean option somewhere. So yeah, but also tomatoes got a glow up. So maybe the tomatoes in the Venusaur is better than it once was, but a lot of things make tomatoes, so I wouldn't suggest it still. And Gengar also seeing a boost, so well as Quagsire, with the mushrooms being used in bigger amounts than they were before. So overall, I think very interesting updates. I think very meta, not necessarily meta shifting stuff, but because people were already kind of leaning towards ingredients, but I think this just really solidifies that ingredients are going to be a majority of our strength in the late game rather than berries. And I think the devs kind of want us to plan teams in a way that we get these meals without the ingredient specialist being run during events. So I'm excited to see where this goes, and I'm really excited to see the ingredients list on the Vikavolt, the Aggron, and the Luxray. Because honestly, that could change some of these things. We don't know exactly. I don't think it's going to change too much of what has synergy, what doesn't have synergy, but let's say the Vikavolt has coffee and milk, and then Luxray has coffee and herbs. If that's the case, then man, Venusaur is going to be amazing, because honey, you just need honey, and you get 2 decent meals. That's a lot of flexibility for the Venusaur then. So there's just some interesting potentials here, and I will make another video once we know their ingredients lists and their ingredients rates. At least a decent estimate. I'll probably be a little bit off because I'll be uploading it before they're actually finalized what their rates are, but I think that it's interesting to discuss. I'm really excited for what's coming. And yeah, thank you. I hope you learned something. See you around.